Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here, the Raptors Digest, tracking the Toronto Raptors 125-104 win against the Miami Heat. Now, the Toronto Raptors came out and they were blazing hot from the three-point line tonight. You know, everyone was hitting shots, and in fact, the Toronto Raptors set a franchise record for three-pointers in a game, and it was a great sight to see. It was a great sight to see for the Toronto Raptors. This game tonight was a very fun one to watch. A lot of stuff happened, and the Miami Heat are a team. Obviously, they're not in the playoffs right now, or they're creeping around the 8th seed, but they're fighting for one of those playoff positions, and they're coming off a 4-game win streak. They're a team that's very motivated to get W's, and the Toronto Raptors, we're fighting for the first seed, you can maybe say, but there's, you know, the Indiana Pacers and the Sixers are playing now, so it looks like the Sixers are going to creep into that spot because they just beat Indiana themselves. So the 2 spot is looking less advantageous as it might have been, you know, a week and a half ago, but still, I personally would rather play the Sixers and the Celtics in the second round, but Raptors aren't too worried about seeding. We know we're probably going to have to play the 4 top-tier dominant teams. I think the Pacers are being overlooked, especially when they had Oladipo, but they don't have Depot, so we're going to have to probably play 2 of the top teams in the East regardless of what happens. So the Raptors aren't worried about seeding. The Heat were coming into this one very motivated. We didn't have Kawhi Leonard. Obviously, Fred VanVleet is still injured, and this team came out blazing hot, aggressive, played phenomenal basketball. We had a Patrick McCaw in the starting lineup, and we'll just get into the players. The first guy we got to talk about is Kyle Lowry, who is absolutely on fire tonight. 24 points, 7 assists, 10 assists, 7 rebounds, and he is just an absolute beast. Kyle Lowry is a man on a mission. You know, he's been absolutely phenomenal as of late. Ever since the trade deadline, he's just been on a whole nother level. You know, at the beginning of the season, people were talking about him being an MVP candidate, and you know, he obviously dipped off, and his injuries were a huge part of that. And we were saying it when he was struggling during that stretch that he's injured. His biggest issue is injuries. Now, if he continues to be injured, there's a bit worrisome about having a chronic injury, but healthy Kyle Lowry is one of the best point guards in the NBA. He's continuing to show that on a night-by-night basis. With Kawhi Leonard out, we needed a guy, you know, we needed someone to step up for the scoring. Pascal Siakam usually does that, and he did that tonight as well, but Kyle Lowry also put his role in there. 10 assists, 7 rebounds, all around amazing performance for Kyle. You know, and the thing I really like about Kyle's game is he's switching everything up, and even if he's not driving too much, because most of his points came from 3-pointers tonight, he had 6 threes, obviously it's 18 of his 24 points, but he's attacking a bit more, he's a bit more aggressive, he's looking a lot more comfortable out there. And if we get this Kyle Lowry going into the playoffs, if we have a healthy Kyle Lowry going into the playoffs, the rest of the East, the rest of the league should be scared, because he can do these things on a night-by-night basis if the team needs it, and in the playoffs, we're going to need our stars to step up, and we got a lot of talent on this roster. So shout out to Kyle Lowry at being an absolute beast as of late. Pascal Siakam, also phenomenal game for him tonight. 20 points, 5 assists, 5 rebounds, 29 minutes of action, didn't play the fourth quarter, 8 of 12 from the field, hit a corner 3 at the beginning of this game, steal a block. Pascal Siakam, whenever Kawhi goes out, he always steps up. You know, Pascal Siakam, he's in his bag this season. He's coming out ready to hit shots, and when he plays with Kyle Lowry, when they're in sync, you know, in games, he every time a shot goes up, you know, it's not like he's cherry picking. You know, he's not doing the 2014 Sacramento Kings where they floated around the idea of having one guy cherry picking the whole game and playing 4-on-5 defense, which is completely stupid. But he's not doing that. He's playing hard defense, getting rebounds, you know, getting blocks, being there on help side, all that sort of stuff. But then as soon as the shot goes up, as soon as we secure the ball, he's the first player down the court, and we see Lowry throw all of these outlet passes to him. You know, it's something we've seen from Pascal even his rookie season. You know, I remember in the preseason of his rookie year, you know, Jared Sullinger went out first game, and Pascal Siakam was just thrown into the lineup, and he was absolutely amazing. You know, just the way he ran. Obviously, his skill set was very raw coming out of college, but his ability to run and energy was always an awesome feat for him. And then now that he has the skills on top of it, everything's just being amplified. So Pascal Siakam, we've talked about him all season, how great he's been. Another great performance from him tonight. Serge Ibaka didn't really need too much out of Serge on the offensive end tonight. 10 and 8, you know, 10 points, 8 rebounds, 4-7 from the field. He knocked down a pretty nice 3 there above the break, which was pretty cool. You know, solid game from Serge. They run a lot of Bam Adebayo tonight, Hassan Whiteside, 2 bigger centers, and Serge did a solid job at securing the rebounds. You know, Nick Nurse has come out and said that they're going to solidify a rotation at the center position. You know, they're going to, because Marc Gasol and Serge have kind of been rotating as the starting center as of late, and going to the playoffs, obviously you don't want to have a rotating lineup necessarily. You don't necessarily want you want a rotation at least going to the playoffs that's pretty consistent, and have other lineups with experience of playing together. But Nick Nurse has got to figure out who's going to be the starting center, and the fact that Serge Ibaka, because obviously Marc Gasol is the bigger player. He's a bit better at beating around with these lumbering fellas. And one issue about Serge, or at least concern, the one concern, because he's been pretty solid this season, but is the defensive and offensive rebounding when he's out there. Obviously, he's more mobile defender and has a greater ability to block shots, but rebounding is kind of where Marc Gasol has the edge over Serge. And tonight, the fact that he could keep Bam Adebayo and Hassan Whiteside off the boards was a great sight. So it's going to be interesting to see who gets the starting position. Danny Green, he was amazing tonight as well. The whole Toronto Raptors team was amazing. Let's be real here. He had 15 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists for Danny Green. All around performance for him, hitting 5 of 8 from the 3. And I still can't get over how we got this guy in the Kawhi trade. He's been absolutely lights out from the 3-point percentage since the All-Star break. And we all know how he hits the clutch threes. He's got that ice in his veins mentality. He's not afraid of the big shots. And now the fact that it seems like every game he's consistently getting 3 to 5 threes. At least that's what it feels like watching as a fan. The consistency is going out there throughout the whole game. So I'm really encouraged from what I've been seeing from Danny Green. The fact that we have a legitimate, reliable 3-and-D guy. We've had a lot of those players that, were branded as 3-and-D guys, but certainly weren't reliable. And Danny Green is, I think, the first Toronto Raptor we've had that's, not a star, obviously, because I think Kyle Lowry is a 3-and-D guy, but he does way more than that, and Kawhi Leonard, obviously. But he's our first role player 3-and-D guy that I think we've had in the past few years that's really consistent. So that's a great sight to see. And Patrick McCaw, he got the start on the Toronto Raptors tonight. 10 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists for him. And, Patrick McCaw, the Toronto Raptors have some great backup wings. OG Anunoby, Norman Powell, Patrick McCaw. Usually Kawhi Leonard obviously gets a start. And usually when Kawhi goes out, it's either been Norm or OG step in. But Patrick McCaw got the start tonight, and he was awesome. He was absolutely amazing. We all know he does it every game on the defensive end. He always does the smart plays. He gets those hockey assists. The ball's always moving. He's not some guy that the ball sticks in his hands and the offense gets kind of stagnated. Norman Powell, that can happen with him occasionally, but Patrick McCaw is very good at playing within an offense, and the fact that he's able to score tonight was very encouraging. He went 3 for 3 from the 3-point line. He made some great cuts, some great passes. I was really encouraged from what I saw from him tonight. But I just brought up OG and Norm, and 2 of them were also great. They're all making their case to be in the rotation in the playoffs. And Norman Powell, we'll get to him first. He had 15 points tonight, 3 of 5 from the 3-point line, 4 assists. It didn't really. There was occasionally he had a couple wild takes, but that's the case with Norman Powell. That's going to happen. But for most of this game, he made very good, sound decisions. He's super explosive. Obviously, out of the 3 guys, I think Norm is currently the most talented player, but his decision making can be flawed at times. But tonight, the 3-point shot was going in. He's hitting his free throws. He was driving to the rim. He made some great plays. I was very happy with what I saw from Norman Powell. Obviously, I'm a huge Norman Powell fan. For people that listen to the pod, everyone knows I'm rooting for Norm God, so happy with how he played. OG Anunoby was also great. Nick Nurse came into the game saying that he wants OG to be more consistent, and defensively he was great. 11 points for OG. He didn't hit a 3, but he had 2 ridiculous jams at I think it was the 4th quarter of this game. One putback. They were on back-to-back possessions, and that was just a great sight to see. OG got those hops. OG got those ups, got those bunnies. He can really throw it down. Those putback jams are very helpful on the offensive end. We could see. I'd like to see OG just try and go out there. Maybe his handle needs to get tighter, but I'd like to see him slash a bit more because he can make some great plays, but obviously the handle and the passing ability needs to improve for that to happen on a consistent basis. But 11 points for him, and he struggled at the free throw line this season. We mentioned it. That's been one of his biggest areas of struggle. And tonight he was 5 of 6 from the free throw line. So that was very encouraging to see. And finally, our 2 new additions, Jeremy Lin and Marc Gasol. Marc Gasol didn't have the greatest game scoring-wise, but off the bench, he doesn't really need to do that on this roster, especially when we have so much firepower, so many guys going. Marc Gasol is another guy, another star that can play within the offense, and that's super empowering for this Toronto Raptors team to have because he can get the most out of these other players. OG, Norm, we saw 2 of them have a great game, and a large part of that is sharing the floor with Marc Gasol because he just passes. His ability to pass, that's the one thing about this Toronto Raptors team. I don't think there's a player on the roster that can't defend. There's not a player on this roster that can't shoot, at least, respectably. You could probably make an argument for Serge, but he's been pretty solid. He's a threat out there at least. And with every lineup now that we have Marc Gasol and Jeremy Lin on the roster, you have at least 3 guys on the court that can pass. You have 3 guys that can create for others, be legitimate playmakers. We have so many of those guys, and that's just going to improve the ability of the other role players to make things happen. And Marc Gasol is probably the front runner for that. He's probably the best playmaker that's not a point guard on this team. And the way he just passes the ball, he swings it. He had a couple turnovers tonight where he's just trying to force it a bit too much, but for the most part, he's very sound at decision making, and I love the way Marc Gasol plays. And you look at the box score, and people are probably going to be discouraged. And we trade Jonas Valanciunas, who's having amazing box score games with the Memphis Grizzlies. And obviously, I was mostly shook up about trading Jonas because he was, he's Jonas. He's a guy in our hearts. We've seen him grow. We've seen him become a Toronto Raptor. He's one of those faces of the Toronto Raptors. But the trade, from day one, I said it made basketball sense. And the fact that Marc Gasol is a much better defender, he plays within the offense of a very talented team better than Jonas. I think this trade worked out for both sides. I'm happy to see Jonas thriving. I'm happy to see Marc Gasol integrate himself with the Toronto Raptors very well. Hopefully the jump shooting becomes a little bit better for Gasol, but regardless, even if this is the Gasol we get, I'm happy with it. And Jeremy Lin. In the first half, he struggled pretty mightily. It was tough to see, but as the game progressed, he made a nice take. He hit a corner 3. And the one thing I love about Jeremy Lin's game is he's playing with full-out confidence. Obviously, he's struggling to shoot the ball, and he had a pretty good game against the New Orleans Pelicans. It's definitely his best game as a Toronto Raptor, but he seems to just play the same way, even if the shots are going in, and if they're not, you don't see his confidence wane, which is a very encouraging thing, because we know how talented he is, and the sample size of Jeremy Lin games, we know that he can shoot, we know he can do these things, so it's not going to be like something that's out of the blue. We know he's a very talented guy, and maybe when he plays off the ball a bit more, because he looks very, very comfortable in the lineups with Kyle Lowry. So when Fred comes back and he plays all of his minutes off the ball, that's going to be a great sight to see. So Jeremy Lin, I'm happy with how he played. Maybe get more consistent in the first half, but the second half he really bounced back. This whole roster's nasty. And Malcolm Miller, Chris Boucher, got our snipers coming in off our 12th and 13th men. So I love this roster. I love everything that's happening. And they played a very hungry Miami Heat team and got the W. But enough about this game. We're going to swing it straight into the segments. And tonight, the Kawhi you do him like that play of the day. I mentioned the OG dunks earlier, and he had some really nice plays. But Kyle Lowry hit a couple threes. There's a lot of plays that could have went to the Toronto Raptors. But tonight, it's rarely it goes to the other team. And the fact that we won by so much, I think it's fair to say. It was in garbage time. It was kind of in garbage time. The Raptors had this game sealed. They had a bow on this game. They brought it already home. But Derrick Jones Jr. obviously has some of the highest vertical leap in the NBA, one of the greatest 2K players of all time. If you're looking for a 50 overall scrub or, in 2K at least, I think he's a pretty solid NBA player. Can play defense and all that. But a guy that's not super high rated in 2K, and you want someone to go off, Derrick Jones Jr. literally dunks everything around the basket. But and for good reason, because tonight he was throwing an atrocious lob pass. I believe it was from Bam Adebayo, and the ball went back, and he jumped about 80 feet in the air, it looked like, and then did a Blake Griffin thrunk. Just threw it straight in the basket. That was crazy. It had Pascal Siakam kind of amped up on the bench, and he's not even on that team. So, that was an interesting thing to see. Definitely the Kawhi you do him like that. Down the stretch of the game, I got to give it to the most exciting play of the game, and Derrick Jones Jr. is getting it for the Miami Heat tonight. But not all plays can be the Kawhi do him like that play of the day, and some just make you say, "Oh, geez." And tonight, the "Oh, geez" play of the day, it's going to not a play, but a former Toronto Raptor, and James Johnson. He didn't get much run for Miami. In fact, didn't play at all tonight. But which is kind of weird because he's been pretty solid. I don't know if he's injured or not, but he's got this afro now, and it's looking pretty cool. I wanted to see James Johnson on the court, see how that afro was looking, in game, and I think it's a good look for James Johnson. It definitely made me say, "Oh, geez," when I first looked at him. I didn't really recognize him. I didn't know who it was. He's obviously had some wild hairstyles. He dyed his hair red at one point for the Toronto Raptors. So I've always been a big fan of James Johnson, and I'm happy he got paid for the Miami Heat. Unfortunately, things didn't work out in Toronto, but his new hairstyle, he's got the new hair. He's wavy, living in Miami, so I respect that. I respect the afro. Shout out to James Johnson. Certainly made me say, "Oh, geez." I saw the new haircut. It's a positive "oh, geez," so I respect the haircut. And finally, the infamous, the one and only Damari Carroll Gold Star Award. And tonight, I have a couple I want to throw out there. And first, the Raptors tied their franchise record for threes in a game. Obviously, probably the players weren't, let known that, especially in a away arena. But you get that the last stretch of the game. Chris Boucher comes in the game. Obviously, Malcolm Miller hit one, which was just a cool sight. But Chris Boucher is usually reliable to get you that one late game three. And once we were tied, Malcolm Miller hit the three. There's about 2 minutes left. I'm like, okay, Chris Boucher's got to bring this home. He's got to set this record straight. We need to break this record this game. And with Chris Boucher, he's guaranteed 3-pointer. And unfortunately, in this game, he didn't do it. He didn't knock down a three. I was hoping he was going to knock down a three and break that record, but unfortunately, he's getting the Damari Carroll Gold Star for letting me down. He took a nice one above the break. At the top of the 3-point line, didn't hit it. So. Yeah, Chris Boucher, come on, my guy. You're a splash monster for the 13th man. You're supposed to be counted on for these late game threes to hype everyone up, and it didn't go in. So that made me sad. I thought it was a surefire thing that Chris Boucher was going to bring it home. But another one is Ryan Anderson for the Miami Heat. This guy is a very highly paid player. His contract is he's getting $20 million this season. He's getting $21 million next season. I'm sure he'll be a buyout candidate or something, but. He's getting no minutes for the Miami Heat. Didn't play any meaningful minutes tonight. I saw him on the court, and I forgot he was on this roster. And I remember back when he got the contract, the Raptors were interested in getting him. He's at one point a 20-point per game scorer, and for a shooter, he's 30 years old. This is usually the prime time of a shooter. In his early 30s, that's when they're usually their best. And Ryan Anderson's just kind of being wasted away on the bench. His defense really isn't there. I mean, he's unplayable for the Houston Rockets in the playoffs, but. For a guy that can shoot it as well as he can, it's kind of interesting to see him be on the bench. I haven't really followed him. Maybe he just completely fell off a cliff, but he's getting paid all that money. I'm just interested. Ryan Anderson, or the people not playing Ryan Anderson, Damari Carroll Gold Star Award. And the Toronto Raptors, luckily we didn't give him that big contract in 2016 when everyone was getting that money. So, yeah. Anyways, the Toronto Raptors, big win against the Miami Heat. Without Kawhi Leonard, without Fred VanVleet, I'm really happy with what I saw from this team. And you guys are the best for making it this far. Check out the Twitter, the Instagram, all that cool stuff. The Toronto Raptors have been awesome all year. They had that couple 2-game losing streak, but we can't stress about these games, especially this time of year. Kawhi Leonard's, he's gearing up for playoff time. Kyle Lowry's gearing up for playoff time, and it's going to be very, very exciting. And to finally end this pod off, I mentioned it during the pod, the Philadelphia 76ers beat the Indiana Pacers for people that have been following the standings. I'm sure you're tracking along this game just as much as you were the Raptors game, because if we remain the second seed, this is probably the team we're going to face in the second round. And the Sixers, I believe they're tied now for the third seed in the East. So and the Sixers won this one pretty handily. So it's looking like we're going to play the Sixers in the second round if we make it there. Obviously, I'm hoping we are, but anything could change. Anyways, you're the best to make this far. I mentioned it. Check out the Twitter, the Instagram, all that cool stuff. I'm signing out. Cheers.